What's good, Footy Culture fam? My name is Matthews, aka Matt, aka Matozinho. Today, we got a very special episode of the Footy Culture podcast. Before we get to our guest, once again, I'm joined today by Jay.
What's good, guys? Welcome back.
Sir, welcome. We got man like Jimmy.
What's going on?
What up? And man like Dan.
How's it going, everyone? We're back in the studio.
Yes, sir. And very special guest, Caroline Salame. What is going on?
What's up, guys? I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. But yeah, we'll get right into it. First off, we want to know how you fell in love with the game. How were you introduced to footy?
Great question. So growing up, when I was very, very young, I was in gymnastics. And then one day I just didn't like it anymore and I quit. And my parents said, no problem, but you have to be in a sport one way or another, because I had so much energy that they were like, you need to get it out of your system. Mm-hmm. So at the time, my dad was training for marathons, and I'm so close with my dad, and everywhere he went, I went. And one day he went to go train for one of like he had a hard running day, and he did some laps around the track. So I went with him, and inside the track was a football field. Mm-hmm. And there was a game going on. This was the first time I was ever exposed to the sport. And I sat there and I watched for 2 hours and I was like, wow, what is this? It was honestly love at first sight. That's awesome. And my dad's a massive football fan. So I asked him all about it on the car ride home. And I said, when I got home, I said, you have to put me in football. And I was 10 years old and I started playing when I was 10. And then by the time I was 14, I was on the provincial team. So it was love at first sight. And also, I always say it was meant to be, because within a short 4-year period of time, I progressed really quickly. So it was just this beautiful relationship, you could say.
I was about to say, like, that's super quick. You started playing at 10 and then on the provincial team at 14. Wow.
That's natural talent, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You guys are too kind, but honestly, it was wild, because I will never forget my first house league game. My coach said, Caroline, go play defense. And I said to him, what's defense? I had no idea about anything. I was completely unprepared. But it's sweet when I look back on it, because nothing was forced. My parents are these incredible parents that never really forced me into soccer or anything like that. It just happened so naturally. And 4 years later, I was on the provincial team, and 2 years later, I went to the U17 World Cup. And then, by the time I'm 17, I'm playing in the US Division I Collegiate soccer. So it happened very, very quickly, all at once. I was very, very obsessed with the sport, fully immersed. I watched every game, every team, knew about every player, just everything about it. It was just kind of the best part of my that chapter of my life was so beautiful, and it was so rewarding. And then it ended due to injury, but what can you do? That happens at times. But yeah, that's how I fell in love with it, and it does. And I also chalk that up to destiny, right? Like, I think that things happen for a reason, and if it wasn't for that injury, I wouldn't had other experiences in my life like I did at Sportsnet and being on television and now doing what I do. So obstacles are detours in the right direction. So even though that was gutting, because it was a career-ending injury for me right before I was going to go into national camps and my last ever year in collegiate soccer, it also taught me a lot of lessons, and I grew a lot as an individual. So it taught me perspective. And I think that that's probably one of the most valuable things you can get in this life is perspective. So I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't go back and change anything. But yeah, it was so nice. It was so nice the way I transitioned into football, and it's the best sport in the world. I'll tell you that much.
100%.
That's amazing. I feel like we all get introduced to the game in so many different ways. Like, for some people, it's by playing. For some, it's by watching on TV with their dad, with their grandparents. And I see you're fully decked out in AC Milan. So how did the passion for Milan come about?
Ooh, I mean, I don't know when that exactly started, but I do know, again, when I was growing up, and we talked a little bit about on Kicked Back with you guys, is that Serie A growing up for me was the top league, and there was just something about Serie A that was unlike any other league, and I just could never stop watching it. And I think it had to have been one of the first times I watched AC Milan, and Kaká made me fall in love with the game, and Crespo and Shevchenko and Maldini and Nesta and Gattuso. I mean, man, we don't talk about Gattuso enough. That guy just ate dirt for everyone. Oh, we need to give Gattuso a nod. Just Seedorf, it was just Dida. The guys on this team, when you watch them play, they were so freaking good, and it was such an iconic team. But primarily Kaká, Shevchenko, and Crespo. Those three, I'm pretty sure they were my MSN name at some point in time. Like the fangirl in me ran deep. But AC Milan, it had to have happened maybe around 12, 14, because I do know that when I went into the provincial team, Team Ontario at the time, quote unquote, was sponsored by Everton. Like we had all of our Ontario kits had the Everton logo on it. Yep. But I would always walk into training with my AC Milan scarf and like fully decked out, like I was on the team or something. And when I would go into the locker room, because I'm crazy, I would hang out my AC Milan scarf on the wall. It was never to be like thrown to the side or thrown with my jacket. It was hanging nicely. And remember my national team coach at the time was like, "You can't do that. We're sponsored by Everton." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's AC Milan, so I'm going to do it."
Yeah, you got to rep your team, right?
It just happened. Always. So it was just so funny. I mean, it started probably around 12, 14, and it's stayed in me since.
Awesome.
No, the passion's clearly evident because I think I saw on your Twitter, it was like your yearbook quote. It said biggest pet peeve, Liverpool. So you were like fully locked in, like the Champions League rivalry at the time. Like, is that why you hated Liverpool? Obviously because of like that comeback per se.
Oh my goodness, guys, yes. And my dad's the biggest Liverpool fan. So my household at the time was crazy. And I'll never forget it. I'll share this story on this podcast. Okay. So I took the day off of school on that day. I have the best parents. I'm like, this is a massive game. And I remember watching the first 45 minutes, AC Milan scored 3 goals. And I called my dad at half and I said, because he's at work, I said, "You're going to want to look at the score and your team is just terrible. Like I'm going in." And he told me before the game, he's like, "Don't tell me the score. I'm going to watch it when I come home." But I just couldn't hold back because I'm like, 3-0 in the Champions League final. Oh, not only did I spoil it, I just went in. Like, and in like the most respectful way, of course. My dad and I, we were the best football buddies. And then I also ordered McDonald's. I'll never forget that because I'm like chilling. I'm like, I'm going to get my Big Mac. I'm going to enjoy this next 45 minutes. And then I'm going to watch my team win the Champions League, right? That second half, I've never felt anxiety brewing. And at that point in time, I guess my dad had tuned into the radio. So he was getting updates from like the second half. And he started calling me after goal 1, after goal 2, after goal 3. And he was cracking up laughing. He's like, "You never speak too soon. You never walk alone." All of these things, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, my life's over. And then, of course, penalties come. I'm pretty sure Shevchenko missed one, if I remember correctly, which I was shocked because Shevchenko doesn't miss. And Jerzy Dudek was in net for at the time for Liverpool, which is a Polish goalkeeper, and I'm Polish. So that was extra salt on the wound. And Liverpool won. And from that day, Liverpool fans don't understand me, but I think it's because my dad and I are such diehard fans from on each side of the fence that I could just never cheer for Liverpool. And that day for me has been such a staple in my mind. It's such a core memory of how Liverpool made me feel as an AC Milan fan, like trauma. That that's why I probably wrote that in my high school yearbook, that my pet peeve is Liverpool. All the normal kids wrote like just normal things that are pet peeves.
Live, laugh, love.
I don't know. When people chew their gum too loud, or when sometimes people walk too slow. Yeah. Those are normal pet peeves. Mine was Liverpool. That's why. And yep, I can tell you it's 2023 and I still have not gotten over it. So that's the story.
That's a great story. It's funny though, because your dad, you said your dad's a Liverpool fan, right?
Yes,
Has
yes.
he tried swaying you into becoming a fan like early on before you started supporting Milan?
No, 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 no. And you know what? We like that we kind of butt heads because it makes match day fun. He never tried to get me on the Liverpool train, but he did try to get me because he also loves Barcelona. He did try
Oh,
to get me on the
smart man.
Barcelona train. Yeah. So I said no. I love Real Madrid, and it's just this ongoing joke throughout my whole life that my dad and I are always on opposite sides, which makes it fun. So yeah, no, he's a massive Liverpool fan, massive Jurgen Klopp fan, and just yeah, my football buddy.
Yeah, you gotta love like a nice, like heated, respectful rivalry like that, right?
Oh, it makes it interesting. You don't all like, I mean, of course, I'm sure it's great when everyone in the house cheers for the same club, but when you don't, it also makes things interesting.
hmm But yeah, you mentioned U17. How did that happen? You getting called up to the squad? Do you remember where you were when the call took place?
Oh, great question, actually. I remember when I made the provincial team, and I don't remember exactly how it worked out with the national team. I just believe that there was a roster made, and I'd known that I made that roster. And yeah, this was the first U17 World Cup that had ever happened in FIFA history. So now
Oh
there's one
wow.
that happens every year, but the year that I went was the first time that FIFA had organized a U17 World Cup. So it was really special to us. We had qualified, we made it. I believe we lost to Germany in the quarterfinals, maybe even right before that. I should know this, but I swear my memory doesn't work past last week. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. I don't think I understood it enough in the moment because I was 16 years old. So I naturally put so much pressure on myself, and football was my entire world and my entire identity that I was just putting so much pressure and stress on myself that now when I look back on that experience, I wish I could just tell my younger self to relax and have fun and enjoy the moment because you have, this tremendous opportunity to represent your country. And I always felt honored in the moment. And, that never escaped me. I just think that at times, when you play a sport or you do something you love, you're always in this mindset of, okay, there's always tomorrow. And with my particular situation, when I had my injury and it was career ending and the surgeons told me I had to stop playing, when soccer and football was immediately taken away from me, I wished in that moment that I would enjoy these achievements that I had earlier on in my career way more, and that I wish I would have relaxed more. So if there's any young soccer players or footballers listening to this and you're hard on yourself, or you have the highest expectations of yourself, just relax and have fun, and I promise you'll get there quicker than if you would stressing. Life's too short, so yeah, it was an incredible experience, and what an honor to represent your country, and I just wish I had more time to do it.
Honestly, because I feel like representing your country, for one thing, is just obviously an incredible achievement. But the fact that you were at a World Cup, and the first World Cup, like you just said, I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
That's history right there, right?
Yeah, like that's
awesome.
that's
Yeah.
literally history, right? Like, what's that feeling? Like, let's say when the anthem's being played, you're with your squad, you're with all the ladies that you kind of grinded together to make it to this point. Like, what is that feeling like for those who will obviously never experience that?
Great question. Yeah, no, it was incredible. And I remember we had the World Cup opening game against New Zealand. So there was about 14 or 15,000 people there. So here I am, 16-year-old girl, and super, again, you guys know through, the 10 minutes that I've been on this podcast how much I love the sport. So here I am doing what I love, representing my country, which is the biggest honor. You know, I come from first generation immigrants, so I always felt like I wanted to do my parents extremely proud too. And they immigrated to Canada to start a better life for their kids. And here I am having the opportunity to play for Canada. And that meant so much to me on a deeper level than just football. So it meant everything to me, and being there with the girls that trained super hard to make that squad and also represent their country, just it meant everything. And I think when you're young, you know, for me personally, I don't want to speak for anyone else, it was soccer and football were the only things that mattered to me. Family was first, and then it was just soccer and football. So to be able to go to a World Cup and sing a national anthem and know that you're about to play New Zealand and hopefully have a good game and hopefully advance was an absolute dream come true. And then at the same time, you're also like, I'm really nervous, right? Like this is everything I've trained for, and I hope I have a good game. And like I said, when you're that young, it feels like it's your whole world times 100, at least for me personally. So it was, the pressure was on for me in the sense that I better play well, I better make myself proud, I better make everyone proud, and I hope I can help this team win this game. But it was incredible.
That's awesome. Was there like a certain moment that like you'll always remember, like a certain memorable moment that you have?
From the World Cup, funny enough, after every single game, I was drug tested. And
really? You were playing that nice, huh?
It killed me because, you know, when you play 90 minutes, there's, you know, not much left in the tank. All the water you drank and everything that you've hydrated with, it's like you're sweating it out. So I remember after every game, they're like, it's a random drug test. Every time my name was picked. And I'm like, this isn't real. So, and then you spend like 3 hours at the drug testing center and you're drinking like 17 or 20 bottles of water because you just finished a 90-minute World Cup game. And it's like rinse and repeat at that point. I think it was every group stage game for sure. And I think I might have missed out on one, but I'm like, this can't be random at this point. Like, what are the odds? And if that's the case, I need to buy a lottery ticket. But oddly enough, that's probably the memory that sticks out the most.
That's crazy. Being drug tested as a teenager? Like,
sure
they're really
16?
drug testing teenagers, bro. That's crazy.
I know. I'm like, I promise I'm good. Yeah.
Like, what are they feeding those kids in Canada?
For real.
Amazing. But yeah, obviously a very beautiful, glittering youth career you had. And kudos to you for that. You experienced a lot of things that a lot of people won't be able to experience, a lot of young footballers. But then after your youth career, your talents took you to West Virginia, which is amazing. What I'm interested in is at that time, like today you have social media, you have rankings, you have so many websites. Like, how was the recruiting process at that point? Like, for you, a young girl from Canada being recruited by a top Division I school in West Virginia, like, how did that happen?
You guys are asking such great questions. Honestly, like I haven't ever been asked a lot of these questions, so it's making me think.
Do research.
So when we played when we were training for the U17 World Cup, I believe we went to Alabama in the US because we were like, we need to train in hot climates. We need to get prepared for qualifiers, which were in Trinidad and Tobago. And we were just trying to get as much training done in the heat as possible. So when we went to Alabama, a lot of University Division I scouts came to watch our camps. So we were fortunate enough in the sense where we didn't have to do these like scouting trips. Those scouts came to us. And then there were a lot of times where I know you guys are located in Vaughan. We were at the Ontario Soccer Association, the OSA.
Okay.
And these scouts, we would have things called like scouting weekend, quote unquote scouting weekends, where the national team or the national training center team, as we called it over there, NTC, we would play like the boys team or whatnot in these national coaches in the US, these university scouts would come watch us and recruit from there. But I was personally recruited by West Virginia scouts. I believe it was at the Alabama camp. And for me, it was between the University of Florida and West Virginia were my last two that I was deciding between. I love Florida. I love warm weather. I was pretty much sold on the University of Florida. But West Virginia was very special for me because my parents were living in the GTA, and it was a 6-hour drive from Oakville to West Virginia.
That's not
if they ever wanted to come, it's not bad at all. And if they ever wanted to come see me in Florida, they would have to get on a flight. So I was very, very, very close with my family. I was 17 when I left home for university. And it was very important to me that I would, if I needed anything or if I wanted to see my parents, that I had the ability to do that. And for anyone listening who might be interested in going to the US, that first year is tough in terms of being a little homesick, and you're all of a sudden thrown into what a Division I collegiate student athlete workload looks like. That it's important to kind of consider the factors of what would it be like if I need to go home for a weekend, or if my parents or family come visit me. So that's ultimately what helped me decide on West Virginia, and I'm very glad that I did, because it was a great time there playing. And my parents, like I keep referencing them on this podcast, are rock stars. They made every single collegiate home game that I had, except for one game that was played at like a 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. So they had traveled. They traveled to me every single home game, and I obviously made the right decision, because just having them there with me during those games was probably the most amazing thing I'd witnessed as a player. Yeah. So that was my decision on West Virginia, and kind of ultimately how I was scouted.
Awesome. How would you say your time over at West Virginia was?
It was good. It was hard. It was very hard. We talk a lot about how amazing it would be to get a full ride for young players, and I do think it's amazing, and you have to be very grateful for when that opportunity comes, but at the same time you work for it, right? It's a job. And we would be training anywhere between 2 to 3 times a day, 6 days a week, plus school. So you're playing for West Virginia. The highest rank we had when I was there was 4th in the country, Division I. So we were a very good team, very good program, worked our asses off. So you're doing morning practices, go to school, come and do cardio, running, and then do lift, and then do film, and then you go home, and it's like 8 or 9 p.m. and you have to study for your test the next day, right? So, and you have to maintain above a 3.0 grade average. So there's a lot of factors that go into it that isn't just football or training or lift or nutrition. There's the student side of it, which was very, very important to me too, to make sure that I was getting my grades at the highest level possible, and I was taking school seriously. So it's tough sometimes to find that balance, and it's tough to get adjusted to what collegiate football is, collegiate soccer, because it's a different playing field in the best way possible. Yeah, you go into preseason training and you have 3 training sessions a day, and you're exhausted, and you're 17 years old, and you miss your parents, and you want to make the starting lineup, and there's so many things going on. So there's a lot of adversity, but it's, again, an experience that I would never trade for the world, because it's made me who I am. Mm-hmm. It's put me into the position, that I'm in now, and it taught me a lot of life skills. So it was tough. It was hard. It was rewarding. I have a lot of gratitude towards that experience. And yeah, I'm also proud of myself, because I always say, if I could get through 4 or 5 years of collegiate soccer, I can get through anything. So yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. But you mentioned earlier about a career-ending injury. For the people who don't know, what exactly happened?
Yeah. So in my junior year, so my 3rd year, I remembered I turned a girl on a field, and right after that, like, I felt all this stuff moving around in my knee, and my leg got stuck in like a deadlock extension, and I fell on the field. So initially they thought I had torn my meniscus, because that's a sign of a meniscus tear. But then when I went in for an MRI, what actually happened was the cartilage in my knee was deteriorating. And when they told me that, I didn't really understand what that meant. I'm like, could I play or can I play? And they're like, you can play. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep playing. So this was probably September and season ends around December. So when I went in for my next MRI, because my knee was so bad, it got to a point where I couldn't push the pedal in my car. I couldn't bend down to pick things up. Before games, I was taking, like, I don't recommend this. I was taking like 5 Advils before every game because I was in so much pain and I just wanted to play. So I went in for that next MRI and the surgeon came out and he said, you have a little bit of cartilage left in your knee. We took it out of your knee because we're going to grow it into a lab. We need to then take off your kneecap, implant the cartilage on the back of your kneecap, sew your kneecap back onto your leg, and hope that this cartilage grows, because you have like very, very, very bad arthritis. They're like, you look like you have like an 85-year-old person's knee at the age of 22.
That's crazy.
So it was just, yeah, it was insane. And I don't know if it was just bad luck or I really don't know what to chalk it up to. It was heartbreaking to hear, but in my mind, in that moment, I was like, okay, so do it and I'll come back even stronger. Like I was absolutely, guys, when I tell you I was laser focused on soccer and football, no one could ever tell me that's not possible or, you know, you can't do it. So I couldn't run for a year and a half. So I had to redshirt my last year of collegiate soccer, which meant I would get it back the following year. So, yeah, I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything for a year and a half. But eventually when I could, I came back so strong. I came back probably the fittest I've ever been, the best I've ever been. I took that experience, like when I was watching my team play in the season that I couldn't, what I did was focus every single time on the opposition and like the girl who was playing my position. And when she received the ball or when she had the ball, I'm like, okay, so I actually have more time on the ball than I would think I would have if I was playing. Like I really learned a lot about my position from watching it for a whole season versus playing. And that was probably one of the most valuable experiences I've had as a footballer, just the ability to realize how much you can add to your game from watching your position day in and day out. And so when I came back to the game, I felt like I just added another level of experience that I never had. So I was like, wow, this is all working out for me in my favor. At this time, the Rio Games were coming up, the Rio Olympics. And I had some conversations with some of the national coaches about going into camps and also playing in my final year of collegiate soccer. And then 2 weeks before season and about a month or two before the camp, I blew out my knee for the last time. And my surgeons were like, you can't play anymore, or you'll have to walk with a cane for the rest of your life. So
oh my God.
I had to hang up the cleats. Yeah, it was a sad day for me. But yeah, that's why I always say to the players who are playing and who have these big dreams, you know, be present and enjoy every single moment, because, you know, not to be dark, but you just never know, right?
Yeah.
You got to love it and appreciate it and soak it up all as much as you can, because you just don't know.
Definitely. And touching on those injuries, obviously you grow up playing for so many years, so many long, gruesome days, long trips, trying to make it to the top, so many setbacks. How do you think injuries like that affect you mentally? Because I feel like you see a lot of players being forced to retire. A notable one, I think it was today, Bojan, who used to play for Barca, had to retire early due to injuries, which ultimately can lead to other things, of course, mentally, right? So how big do you think the mental side of football is when you're trying to make it as a top footballer?
I think it's bigger than the physical side. You know, when I was going through my injury, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I can do 3 rehab sessions a day because I'm strong and I want to get back. And, you know, it was just like, I can get through pain. I'm built to get through pain. I have a high pain tolerance. I can get past this mentally on days where, you know, for me personally, soccer became my identity. Football became my identity. And when I didn't have it and I couldn't play it, I was I was really in the dumps. And you'd go to practice and you'd see players in your position. You'd worry about losing your position, or worry about, will I ever get back into form like I was prior to this injury? Or who am I without this sport? All of that weighs on you, right? So the mental side and the mental struggle of injury sometimes can be way more difficult than the physical side, because physical will heal in time, and mental, you just have to, I believe in the law of attraction. I believe in manifestation. And when you're kind of in that negative headspace and you want to achieve so much, but you're just not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, it can feel very heavy and very doom and gloom. And it may feel like it's just impossible to get out of it. And that's something I faced in my injury. And that's also something I faced after my injury when I lost football, that I have a lot of respect for any athlete in any sport when they overcome. And also, if they're facing adversity. And I think that's why I had so much empathy for Cristiano Ronaldo when he was going through what he was going through, because people don't understand the mental side of things, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to assume, it's easy to judge, it's easy to, expect these things out of these super famous footballers, but behind the scenes, you don't know what people are dealing with. And it's interesting now because all of these headlines are coming out about what Ronaldo may have gone through. And you could probably understand why he was handling things the way he was handling them and also, maybe why he wasn't having his best performances. So the mental side of the game is the toughest, most important part of the game for sure.
No, and I think we 100% agree with you. At the top level, it's a bloodbath, and there's so many major, minor setbacks that could really take a toll on you mentally. So it's amazing to see how you've been able to rebound from that, which is incredible.
Thanks, guys.
But I know we're getting short on time, and the call is also due to cut out soon. But we definitely have to do a part 2. Get the rest of your story, because I know your story is fantastic. But thank you so much for coming and chatting with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. And anytime you guys want a part 2, you let me know. Maybe if I make my way back to Toronto, we'll shoot an episode inside the cool studio that you guys have built.
Let's do it. Yeah.
We love that.
Thank you for your time and for all the great questions. Honestly, you guys made me think today about my past. And again, they were really, really good questions that I really haven't been asked before. So thank you guys so much. And congratulations on 10,000 followers on TikTok.
Thank you. Slowly growing. We're slowly growing up. Hopefully we get up to you one day.
No, my goodness, you guys are killing it. And I saw that someone's like copying your content, which I know happens on TikTok. But I always say that that's like a nice compliment that you guys are doing the right thing. So congratulations. And I can't wait to see footy culture blow up. And, make sure you guys have me back on when you guys are super, super famous and you're interviewing Messi.
We won't forget about you. Don't worry.
You better not.